The Star Wars universe is constantly expanding.
But how the heck are you going to keep tabs on it without a holocron? And where in the rim can I score the juiciest news and rumors?
Ah, you seek State of the Empire, Consequence of Sound's Star Wars speculation podcast, where we look for news in all the wrong places.
We dig into the Sarlacc pit of the internet for the hottest intel in the galaxy far, far away. Make Indiana Jones inquiries and keep watch for the latest on Willow.
Find us on consequenceofsound.net or wherever you procure fine podcasts. It's the show you're looking for. Consequence Podcast Network.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's an audio interview series presented by WFPK Independent Louisville at WFPK.org, Consequence of Sound, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Before we get started, go ahead and take a second to hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening to, whether it's on YouTube or you're checking out the podcast or if you're listening on Spotify. Follow, subscribe, whatever you got to do to keep up with us. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today my guest is Ben Hozie of the band Bodega. Their debut record is out now. It's called Endless Scroll. It's one of my favorites of the year. We're going to talk about the weight and history of some NYC punk and how it all sort of ties into their creation story. A particular set of rules that the band put in play before they really ever got started that's come back to haunt them a lot, and how Ben took some inspiration from Leonardo DiCaprio's Jack in the movie Titanic. Talking about the record Endless Scroll, it's Kyle Meredith with Bodega.
Hey.
My compliments first. Endless Scroll, one of my favorite releases of the year. It's an exceptional record. You guys did knocked it out of the park on this one.
Thank you.
You know, being in New York, sort of having a punk vibe to it, whatever you want to call it, art punk, wherever this falls in, how much weight does the history of that scene in New York play to it? Or is there any sense of wanting to at least, honor that heritage, I guess?
Well, I think you honor that heritage by kind of destroying the heritage in a way, the kind of the Sonic Youth Kill Your Idols mentality. So, I mean, yeah, we're obviously influenced by a lot of bands. You know, we have the stand-up drums and the droning major chords, which we nick from the Velvets. And, I guess we have, maybe we're less influenced by the CBGB's bands, but I'm sure it's in there somewhere. Honestly, the bands I feel like we rip off the most were British bands from that era, like The Fall and Wire and Gang of Four. I thought they were kind of more conceptual in a way that the New York City bands weren't, at least towards our taste. Early New York City hip-hop is a thing that we like a lot. I mean, definitely we're not a band that tries to hide our influences. We kind of wear them on our sleeve to play with towards our own. And, we're not trying to be a revival group by any means or anything like that,
I mean, and you all came from, another band and other bands where it didn't sound like this, although the hallmarks are there because you're, the vocals and everything, you're still you and everything. But so when you went into this, with those bands in mind or whatever, I mean, did you know exactly what you wanted Bodega to sound like in that sense?
Yeah, pretty much. I wanted it to be more streamlined than my last band with the similar ideas, but, a little bit more minimal, a little bit tougher. A little bit more, with talk rap vocals kind of vibe. Just something that, we were feeling a lot of pent up energy. We wanted to play like a, very streamlined music that would really get a club moving. You know what I mean? It was very utilitarian. We weren't thinking big picture. We were thinking about what's the best 45-minute set we could play to a bar full of 100 people,
I mean, I think that's what's mind blowing to me about this is how realized the sound is. For it being first album for this band or whatever. I think that's like how long from getting to that point of what you wanted to getting the sound realized, was it difficult? I mean, did you find that it was easier than before?
It was kind of difficult. There was a lot of nothing was really organic with making the record. We a lot of it was sort of written in software. Our lead guitar player, Madison, I would have a song that I really liked, which just kind of something simple like power chords and the melody, and I was kind of set that it was going to be that way. Maybe in the way Can't Knock the Hustle is. That's there was most of the songs were in that vein and that very simple Pink Flag, Ramones kind of style. Then we got really excited about not being so obvious and so just kind of straight up punk rock. So we we kind of chiseled away, and we would match up melodies with guitar parts that weren't. One thing that really excites us about songwriting is if you have a song that doesn't make sense unless all the parts are playing at once. So the melody wouldn't even make sense unless you heard both the guitar parts. And the record's it is minimal, but each part of the puzzle is doing something different to create the whole painted picture.
No, it's a symphony. It's completely a symphony in that sense.
Yeah.
Starting out the record, having a line right up there at the beginning of "This machine doesn't kill fascists, it's only a guitar." A lot of people centered on that line. It's a great line. But it's not, in a way. I mean, you're setting us up for. It feels like you're setting us up for something, especially as you listen to the rest of the record. Maybe that guitar itself literally isn't going to, but you're still aiming away and taking some stabs in this.
Yeah, I guess I had sort of a rock fan existential crisis, as I'm sure most people do, a couple of years ago, where rock and roll had meant so much to me as something that could carry profound meaning, and I know it certainly changed me and my outlook of the world. But then you hit this point where you realize, wow, I've been tricked maybe, and this is all very superficial, and pop songs are essentially just jingle commercials to sell me a lifestyle, and I bought into it, and maybe I'm wasting my time here. I don't know if you relate to that. So a lot of my songwriting over the last 3-4 years has been kind of an emotional response to that, where I'm holding this almost in a Hegelian synthesis, this idea of believing in rock and roll in this very classical kind of way, and then hating it at the same time. No, I mean there's a very simple Jeff Tweedy line, Jeff Tweedy from Wilco, that he says, "I believe in rock and roll." I find myself wanting to believe in rock and roll in that way, because there are those moments. You're talking about Sunken Treasures?
That's right, exactly.
Yeah. I love that song.
Yeah, because there have been those moments in my life where it's a song, whether it's a political song or a socially reflective song or whatever in that sense, but it's been a call to arms for myself, and whatever. I've wanted to believe in that, and I want to believe that guitars can kill fascists. It's
definitely, yeah.
I mean, but you're not just. I mean, it's not. You're not calling out the government or anything like this. You chose to hit on something really more specific to people's lives.
Well, I think my strategy has always been, I don't like when bands point at the boogeyman. For example, if you wanted to I've seen a lot of punk bands aim songs at the American president now and things like that. It's just so obvious and kind of dumb, and in some ways just makes the person singing the song seem stupid. I don't know. Whereas, I've always thought it's more interesting and much more honest to kind of critique yourself and critique sort of the alternative mindset and show how it's not, in fact, alternative at all. But the Bodega Bay album was called Our Brand Could Be Your Life, which is obviously a spin on the classic Minutemen, Our Band Could Be Your Life. And, it's meant to be very offensive to a lot of old punks, who revere that book and the Minutemen and that whole 80s underground lifestyle, of essentially saying, well, I mean, that was just as equally as superficial as, anything that those people were criticizing. That to me is much more honest and much more real. And that's why How Did This Happen is not about, it's about sort of the complacency of alternative culture, I guess, which is a far more hard thing to talk about than it is to just say, look at these bad people who have terrible policies and whatnot. It's duh, I don't know.
Well, it's nice the way I guess the weight is there because you're saying important things, but it doesn't ever feel like you're taking things overly serious, or and I don't mean that condescending in a way. Of course, there's also the balance of this record too. You get a song like Jack in Titanic, which there's the moment to exhale, it's a moment to breathe and have fun a little bit.
Nikki, the other singer in the group, she loves that movie Titanic, so she was very earnestly likes it. It's just a very well-crafted melodrama, which it is. It's like Gone with the Wind or something.
Sure. Yeah.
So we were watching it, and I hadn't seen it since I was probably 7 or 8 or something when it first came out. But I realized while watching it with her that almost all of my ideas of what it means to be a man, in quotation marks, had been sort of extracted from that character. I had internalized it, as well as other characters that I'd seen on the screen as a little kid, like James Bond or Jackie Chan in the Rush Hour movies or something like that. But I had been sort of seducing Nikki. We were just starting our courtship, and I realized that I had been acting just like Jack. And then I had this bigger idea, too, that so many of the rock and roll archetypes that I've come across locally in Brooklyn and just in books and things like that, they act just like Jack does as well. He's like, the perfect kind of rock and roll character. He's in that very Huck Finn kind of way, but even more so because like the fantasy I think all rock and rollers have is we can come from the underdogs, the underprivileged. That's why you get so many rock and roll people pretending to be poorer than they actually are. It's like there's always a contest between rockers and garage rockers to one up each other about how much harder they had it growing up than the other ones. And a lot of times it's very comical. Because then Jack, he's able to be very much himself when he's hanging with the upper classes in that very James Bond way. He's comfortable in all scenarios. And, he's a great dancer. He's a great lover. He's romantic. He can paint, but he can also fight. He always sticks up for what's right. He has his buddies. There's that male camaraderie thing. I don't know. I can go on and on, but I don't know. I saw something in that character that seemed to be like a bigger picture idea. But, I guess Jack in Titanic ties in with one of the bigger Bodega ideas is that, none of our ideas are our own. They always come from somewhere, some kind of system or so. In that sense, it's just, it's just as political of a song as any other ones. But, like you said earlier, I think that the ideas are best communicated through jokes and through wit and stuff like that. And I do honestly think Titanic is a hilarious, fun movie. I'd happily watch it tonight if I had 3.5 hours to kill or something. So.
It's interesting. My similar association with it, there was a movie around that same time called Legends of the Fall. Are you familiar with that one?
Oh, yeah.
I went as far as naming my son after one of the characters in that, which was Brad Pitt's character. His name was Tristan. And and these days I look at that and I go, oh, I don't want him to completely look at that and feel like he's supposed to pick up on all the macho mannerisms that come along with that character. It's just, but there that is all embedded in it,
Yeah. That's hilarious.
Poor kid. It's a great movie. I still love it. I'm not apologizing for that part of it all, but
No, I've never seen that one. I remember seeing the videotape at Blockbusters and stuff, but I'll have to go watch it.
That's a beautiful epic, completely beautiful epic. Yeah. It does bring up Jack and Titanic. Also brings up another thing. When I saw Bodega's list of rules that you all made going into it, one of them is do not repeat lyrics. Yeah. But I guess that doesn't mean like you're not meant to have hooks, though, right?
Oh no, we're all about hooks. A hook can mean a lot of different things, but a one phrase that you repeat becomes a hook. The thing about it's funny ever since that list got put out, I think in the Village Voice or whatever, people ask me about it like every day, and I feel slightly embarrassed, but I think it's also very true of the creative process that we broke every single rule on that list.
Right.
We do plenty of garage rock. We do plenty of, repeating lyrics. Almost all the rules we broke, which I think, I feel like when you set out to make conceptual stuff and you say, all right, we're going to have no guitars in the song, but if you need guitars on the song, then whatever, But it's good to start with the rule,
Well, it's also, by accident may be good for rock and roll myth making on top of it. Now there's something that exists in that realm.
Yeah, well, it was extremely helpful because how are we going to define what we're going to do? Well, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do this. And in our minds, like we were following all these rules. But if we're honest with ourselves and we listen to it, we're like, oh, maybe it's not as different as we thought we did, but we hit upon our own thing, so that's cool.
Absolutely. And to go along with that, having the song set in a place or whatever. The album in one sense is so specifically set in Brooklyn, as again many people have written. But this could be anyone's Midwestern life. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky, and it's as much mine as anybody's. That's the great trick.
Yeah.
I've said this before. When you make a song, because you have some songwriters and their train of thought is that I have to make this accessible to everyone. And when you do that, you get bland and nothing that I can hold on to. But the songs that, when an artist writes so specifically about a person they know, about a place that they were at, about something that happened in that one moment in time just for them, I find that I relate to that 10 times more than, any of these other bigger themed songs.
Yeah, no, concrete things are always really powerful because you have a specific image to hold on to. Otherwise, you just have a platitude, which you can't hold on to.
And every one of these songs become, just something 10 times more than I think. I don't know if you ever meant them to be that way. Or if you fell into that part accidentally, but that's exactly how it worked out.
Well, I really do appreciate it. It feels good that, the record does translate,
Yeah, no. Again, Ben, Endless Scroll is one of my favorites. Thank you all for making it. And hopefully I'll be able to hear it live at one of these points too. So I appreciate that and your time today.
Well, we should be coming through there in the spring, so hopefully we'll see you then.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and I'll see you around.
See ya.
All right,
Good
take care.
chatting.
Hey, thanks to Ben from the band Bodega for that call right there. And again, the new record is called Endless Scroll. If you haven't already, please do hit that subscribe button before we get out of here so you can keep up with all of the interviews that we put out every single week. And that's whether you're checking out the podcast, whether you're listening on YouTube or on Spotify. Afterwards, head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show every Monday through Thursday from noon to 3 Eastern, where you'll also find some bonus episodes of this series. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.
Consequence Podcast Network.